What's going on? Welcome to the Blue Shoes Fitness Podcast, where we talk about strength training, nutrition, faith, family, and how all of those things work together for parents like you and me. My name is Coach Jay, and today I want to catch you up to speed with all that's been going on in my life offline and behind the scenes. I've been off the air for a few weeks, and God has been doing some really awesome stuff in and through our family, some really exciting transitions coming up, and I'm super pumped to share all of this here with you and all at once. Before we get into that, let's kick things off with the verse of the week. This is John chapter 21, verse 25. This is the very last verse, the very last line in the book of John, and it reads like this. Jesus did many other things as well. If every one of them were written down, I suppose that even the whole world would not have room for the books that would be written. This is a pretty simple meditation, but I came across this verse earlier this week, and there's not a deeper meaning that we're trying to extract from this here. We're just trying to read it at face value, and it's pretty amazing when you think about that we have a record. We have 4 records, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, of Jesus's ministry, his public ministry, which is somewhere around 3 years long. And you would imagine that for somebody who's teaching day in and day out for 3 years, that's over 1,000 days, that we would have lots and lots and lots of information about it. And yet when you read the gospel accounts that we do have a lot of information. We have a lot of his teachings, a lot of his parables, a lot of his actual navigation throughout his ministry. But do we have 3 full years worth? And I would say that John is suggesting that no, we don't, and that there is not enough room in the whole world if we had all of that written down. And that's pretty amazing to think about, that there were miracles that Jesus performed, there were parables that he told, there were places that he went that we don't have a specific written account of. And that is really awesome. That makes me think, man, if I were to, that's getting added to my list of, okay, when I get to heaven, what am I going to ask Jesus? What am I going to talk about? And that makes me think of the kind of thing that I would love to ask him about. So tell me about all the things that we didn't have written down, the things that didn't get passed on to us a couple thousand years later. So anyway, just a meditation for you to think about Jesus as the divine Son of God and God himself. We have all the reason to believe that he is who he says he was, and that implication for your life today is immense. And I love thinking about the word that we have and all that we don't have as well. And so that's really exciting to think about. All right, let's get into the topic today, behind the scenes, some personal and professional updates. So like I said, I've been off the air for a few weeks now, and that has been for good reason. There have been lots and lots of things going on in our lives, as this title would suggest, both in our personal lives as our family and in my professional life as a coach as well too. So I wanted to share some of those updates with you here, and you either are here because you know me either personally or through online, and you go, oh, I wonder what's been going on in his life. Or maybe this is a little bit of a departure from what you would expect from a fitness podcast, and I hope that this still provides some awesome insights for you too. This is not just about, elevating myself on some pedestal to be able to say, oh, you should care about what's been going on in my life. This is really for those of you who actually do care about what's been going on behind the scenes and what that means for the future too. Lots of exciting stuff, and I'm glad that you're here. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 areas of updates that I want to run through with you, just to be able to share a little bit about what's been going on in my world. And the very first thing, let's just start things off right with training, my own training in the gym. So you may have seen on Instagram, I posted my first post also in a couple of weeks, but that post was talking about how I completed my first workout in a month. It had been a full month since my last workout, and that happened last week. And right after I record this episode, right after I hit the stop recording button on my screen, I'm going to go right to the gym and hit up my next workout, which I'm super pumped for. Last week, hitting that first workout in a full month, that was such a great workout session. It was great because of the actual what I was involved with and what I was doing, but it was also from a somewhat symbolic sense too. It felt like I was stopping that backwards momentum of making sure that the ball was not continuing to roll in the wrong direction. Now, I say all of this with a little bit of an asterisk on it because it was pretty intentional that my own training was put on hold for this time. I didn't feel like I was backsliding or anything like that, but it felt really good just to put a pin in that, to go, okay, this is where we're going to pivot into a positive direction here. So it was an awesome session. And I posted a video of me doing some really brutal hack squats. And this was last week. And my quads are still on fire, even just sitting here. So for my actual training, I've been following my own Strong Shepherds program. I figure I should practice what I preach. And so one of the ways that I do that is by typically following my own programming for my group program. And I'm super excited about all of that. One of the things that I wanted to share with you, just because you might not have any specific indication of this by some of the posts that I put up. But the Strong Shepherds group program that I run, that's a month-to-month program. A new program comes out every 5 weeks or so. There are many different variations for each of the movement patterns. So in any given workout, there's typically about 6 exercises. And within those 6 exercises, they are organized by movement pattern, something like a horizontal upper body pushing exercise, or a lower body squat-based pattern, or a hinge-based pattern, or something like that. And within those, I have a whole slew of alternatives and variations that fit those different patterns. And so you can customize this based off of whatever it is that you have access to, or even just preference wise, if there's a particular machine that you enjoy using or a particular modality. Maybe you like using barbells. Maybe you don't like using barbells. Maybe you have a whole lineup of kettlebells at your gym and you want to figure out how to use those. You can customize these workouts to whatever it is that you have access to, whether you're working out at the gym or at home. For me personally, I am currently running a training block where I'm almost entirely using machine and cable variations of these different exercises, mostly for the sake of efficiency and consistency. And I talk a lot about stability and the importance of stability. If you've been around here for any length of time, you've probably heard me talk about this. Stability when it comes to an exercise is such a crucial aspect to be able to nail in when you're talking about strength and hypertrophy training. And that's beyond the scope of this episode here, but I did want to just share that I don't know that I've touched a dumbbell in a couple of months, or anything besides a machine where you're locked into a specific movement pattern, or a cable where you have a little bit more flexibility of where you press, where you pull, but you still have a little bit more stability than something like a dumbbell or other free weights. So that's been the training style that I've been using recently. So that's my training update for you here. On a coaching update for Blue Shoes Fitness, which, if you're new around here, the Blue Shoes Fitness podcast is not just named that just because. It's also because that's the name of my coaching business. And I am clearly not focused currently on Instagram posts. As you've noticed, and as I just mentioned, I've also had one post in about a month or so. And that was to update you that I haven't been posting much. And so that has not been the primary focus here. I'm in my office and I'm looking behind my computer at my 2023 sticky note. And if you're watching the YouTube video here, you won't quite be able to see it either. It's just off camera. But I have 5 sticky notes that are up, and they are my different areas of focus for Strong Shepherds, or for Strong Shepherds, for Blue Shoes Fitness. And the one that I'm reading is Strong Shepherds. That is my primary focus right now through Blue Shoes Fitness, is building up that group training program by way of focusing on adding as much value as I possibly can through that, and exploring some of the different features on the app itself. And so that has been number one focus, and will continue to be number one focus, to be able to keep encouraging other parents who are looking to fulfill their strength training needs and not wanting to write up their programming, or not having the knowledge to be able to write up their own programming. So if that's you, the Strong Shepherds, I'm going to share a little bit more about that at the very end of all this too. But that's what I've been focusing on primarily behind the scenes. Next up is this podcast right here. This is something that I have taken a little bit of a break from, and I'm looking forward to getting back into this, posting these weekly episodes for you here. So I'm really excited about that. What has been taking up a lot of my time in the coaching regard has been exploring different avenues of teaching. And like I said, Instagram has not been my primary mode of doing that over the past few weeks, or even over the past couple of months. But if you're connected with me on different platforms, you may know that I've been spending a lot of time and energy on Pinterest specifically. And there is you can check it out for yourself, so I don't need to explain all this here, but there's a feature on Pinterest that's called Pin TV. And just like how you can go live on Instagram or Facebook and people can tune in and watch your live session, whether you're just giving an update like this, or if you have a structured teaching session that you're doing, whatever that live looks like, Pinterest does it a little bit differently, where they have a live feature, but you have to apply for it. And at any given point on the entire Pinterest platform, there's only one person who can go live at a time. And I've secured a couple of live TV episode spots that I've done. So I think I've done 1, 2, 3, 4. I think I've done 5 or 6 at this point. And it has been so much fun teaching from that. It's a half-hour time slot, and there's going to be a couple coming up in August on Friday. And so I'll send out more information on all that. But it has been so much fun getting to be a leading voice on this Pin TV platform and being able to teach about strength training, specifically with parents and for parents. There on Pinterest, I don't want to harp on it, but there is a lot of junk out there in the way of fitness and health and supplementation and nutrition and all of the kinds of things that we tend to talk about on here. There's a lot of junk on there that's really just meant for trying to get views and get clicks and things like that. So I've tried to be a voice of reason, of saying, hey, strength training is in some ways much less complicated than social media would have you believe. And in other ways, it's a bit more complex than some of the really reductionist views where it just gets totally diluted and you just need to work hard or you just need to do a ton of things or things like that. And so I try to be that middle ground to really say that, hey, this is going to require some time and effort, but if you have some strategy along with it, all of that can be maximized together in an optimal way for whatever your goal is. And so that's what I've been doing. I've been spending a lot of time on Pinterest over there. So if you're looking for some of my educational posts, you can head over to Pinterest and find me there under Blue Shoes Fitness. Next up, I just wanted to briefly mention my affiliation with Legion, which has been awesome so far. I just got my monthly order of supplements that I put in, and I got 4 different supplements. I got some multivitamins, some magnesium, and a nootropic. It's called Ascend, and then a probiotic as well too. And I'm really excited to try all 4 of these because I've been taking multivitamins daily for years and years and years, and I've taken probiotics in the past, but I've never specifically supplemented with magnesium, and I've never tried one of the nootropics, which is one of the focus and memory type supplements, where the active ingredient in this one is alpha GPC. And again, out of the scope of this episode here, but one of the things that Legion always promises to do is to include clinically effective doses of clinically effective ingredients. So if you're tracking with me on that, it's not just a matter of having ingredients that have been shown to be effective. It's also having those ingredients that have been shown to be effective in doses that are shown to be effective, because you could include an ingredient in your supplement that says, hey, this has been shown to be effective, but you could have it at half the dose that was shown to be effective, and you might not actually be getting any real benefit from that, if that makes sense. So anyway, I'm really excited to try a couple of these here. Magnesium has a host of benefits that have been coming out, not the least of them being improving athletic performance and mood and sleep and even bone and cardiovascular health. Some of these kinds of supplements are pretty interesting because they don't have a real tangible effect where you go, oh, I know that I didn't take my magnesium pill yesterday because I'm really feeling it today. That's not quite how that works. Same with some of the nootropic stuff as well. So I'm excited to be able to experiment with some of these and to give you some short and long-term thoughts on all of that too. So I thought I'd mention that there for you as well. Outside of that, one of the things that I've been thinking about just loosely in the back of my mind, and I kind of want to spitball a little bit with you here, is with all the things that I've been doing coaching wise, I've really been pushing more toward this one-to-many sort of teaching, whether that's through Strong Shepherds or it's through Pinterest or through here on the podcast. I've been looking at going, okay, how can I make the most of my time as a coach to be able to put out these teaching lessons that are helpful for as many people and as many parents as possible? And something that, again, just kind of been churning in the back of my mind just a little bit is maybe coming up with some kind of digital product, whether that's a online course or an ebook, or even if it's just updating my current strength training for parents guide that I have on my website. That's something that I've been looking at putting out there and putting some effort into there. So if you have any particular idea of what it is that you would like to see from me, whether that's in the way of a course or an ebook or any kind of a download or anything like that too, I'm open to hearing all sorts of ideas, because I'd love to kind of go back and forth with anyone who's like, hey, this would be really helpful. This sort of content would be really helpful. So anyway, that's what I'm looking for right now. So that's what's been going on there. All right. Next up, third on the list is church. This has been one of the biggest areas of updates, and I'll share that with you here in a moment of kind of the further implications of all of this and where this has led even just over the last couple of weeks. But something that we've been increasingly feeling as a family is that it seems like God has been leading us to help a new church. And not only is it new for us, it's new altogether. It's actually a church plant in the West Valley of Phoenix, which is where we're at. It's called the Garden Church. And this was a church that we actually got hooked up to through Instagram at the beginning of this year and have kind of just been tracking along with their journey. We've gotten to know both online and offline. We've gotten to know the pastor and his wife, Nolan and Lindsay, and they have made quite the impression on us as far as not just friends and leaders in general, but also as church leaders and church planters. And we have, even just over the past couple of months, really felt that the Lord has been calling us to join forces with them. And it's been kind of a crazy series of transitions. You can learn more about them at thegardenaz.com, or if you really want to, they have an awesome podcast that's just called the Garden Church Podcast. And I'll put all of that information in the show notes below too. But man, has it been an awesome journey of getting to go, okay, this new church plant is coming to our side of not just the country, not just our state, not just our city, but even to our kind of specific location where we're at. And we've really resonated with their vision and their mission and their plan to carry that out to be able to reach the West Valley for Jesus. And just to give you a real quick snippet of what it is that they're all about, just in case that you are interested in following along with them either online, or if you're out here in the West Valley in Phoenix, then we would love to have you join us here. So their primary vision and mission is classic church alliteration, which I'm totally here for, as long as the cheesiness doesn't come at the expense of the actual content, which I love the way that they've done this. Their mission is to make, mature, and multiply disciples of Jesus, which all sounds good, but how do you actually do that? So they've actually followed that up with yet another alliteration of their three main pillars, and that's going to be word, way, and witness. So the word side of it is making the word of God the central focus. What a novel concept. What a great idea for a church and for everybody. Way is talking about learning to follow the way of Jesus together. And lastly is witness, which is developing people to leverage their influence for the gospel. And so it's a kind of three-pronged ministry approach, and I totally support all three of them. And our family is just so pumped to be able to come alongside with the garden. And so I'll keep you updated as we go along with all of that too. But the big update that I want to share with you here is my fourth area of update here, and this is actually my job and career side of things. So this is somewhat related to and yet somewhat separate from the coaching tab on here. So coaching is what I've done full time for many, many years. I think I'm about almost a decade into coaching as a whole and almost 5 years into Bush's Fitness. And so I've gotten to do about half in person and half online, and both halves have been awesome. For the past couple of months, because I've created some space with in my schedule from the one-to-many coaching model through Strong Shepherds. For the past couple of months, I've also been working part-time for my brother-in-law, and I've gotten a really unique experience here that I'm in the work that I've been doing. And I'm going to guess that there's a chance that you've probably never even thought about this. I have gotten the chance to unleash and unload and shoot off hundreds of fire extinguishers. Does that sound interesting? So I have been able to work as one who refurbishes fire extinguishers. So taking old fire extinguishers, emptying them out, cleaning them out, filling them back up, making them serviceable so that they can go back into the field, whether that's for an apartment complex or for a church or for whatever it is. And it has been quite the experience. It has been so much fun getting to do that. And so I've been able to help out with that for the past couple of months. At the same time, with the Garden Church, we've been getting invited to some of their internal leadership meetings and getting to see the vision from Nolan and Lindsay, and it has been such an amazing refreshing take on what church can look like, that we've been like, all right, how do we get our hands dirty in this? How do we actually get involved with this by putting in our time and our energy and our sweat equity and all that kind of stuff? And one of the things that we've learned is that the garden leadership is really looking for some help with creating systems to organize people and tasks and growth of the church as it continues to grow. It's already grown, even though it hasn't even started yet. It'll be starting here in a few weeks from the time of this recording. But so they're looking at creating some systems for all of that. And that's exactly where my passion and my skill set kind of coincide. And everything that I've been doing with Blue Shoes Fitness is exactly that, of creating systems that make things easier to organize these exact things, to organize people and tasks and growth of the business and all of that. And so I am absolutely going to be continuing on with all of these same things that I've been doing for Blue Shoes Fitness, with a huge focus on strong shepherds, like I said, and adding lots of value for the parents that are following along with us. But I'm also going to be working alongside with the garden, and I'm really excited to be part of that leadership team. And like I said, I'll keep you updated with all of this as we go along, but it has just been such a blessing to us so far. And I am hoping that God will use me and us as a blessing back to the church and the people that make it up as well too. So like I said, I'll keep you updated with all that, but it's been real exciting so far. Next up, number 5 is family. I figured I'd update you on my family. And this is where a lot of us parents, where we just kind of default to going, oh, the kids are growing so fast and, they're getting so big and all that kind of stuff. And I am going to do that, but I'm not going to start there, because I definitely wanted to start in order of my priorities here, and not to bring the mood down here a little bit, but I do want to bring some maybe a sobering thought to your mind, is that as parents, how often, even as Christian parents, how often do we over prioritize our kids? Kids should absolutely be high on our priority list, but they should not be the top of our priority list. And it should go without saying at this point, but I'm going to say it anyway, that Jesus and our commitment to him should be our number one priority. But next up is still not your kids. This is where I would say that next up is your family ministry, but that is spearheaded with your ministry to and with your spouse. And so I wanted to start with my wife Amanda, and just to say that we are coming up on close to 8 years of being married, and that's so wild to think about. But I absolutely have just these 8 years of just growing and growing and growing together has been I don't have this written in my notes here. I didn't have a plan for this year. It has really been amazing, an amazing journey, and I could not and would not do it without her. And I tend to talk about her a lot as my wife, but as the mom to our kids. And we tackle parenting, and we're in the midst of toddlerhood, where it's all hands on deck. But I always want to make sure that I recognize her as more than just a co-parent, even though that's a big part of our roles of what we're doing in this stage of life. But just our relationship as husband and wife, man, it's been awesome getting to grow together in so many different ways. Professionally for Amanda, she's been crushing it with her printables and her homeschooling illustrations. And like I said, if you've been following along, some of this is probably old news to you here, but it's still exciting to us to see that she is still crushing it on her Etsy shop, and we're building out a separate Shopify site for her and doing all this other cool stuff on the side along too. So anyway, she's been crushing it at all of that. Now let's get to the kiddos. So if you're new here, we have 2 girls that are 2 and 4 years old, and like I said, we're in the thick of toddlerhood, and specifically with these girls, we are in the thick of all things pink and all things princesses. We took them for their first movie a couple of weeks ago to go see The Little Mermaid, and that was such a fun experience of getting to show them what going to the movies is actually all about. It's not just something you pull up on your TV at home, though that is a ton of fun, but getting to go to a movie theater, and we just described it as there's going to be a really, really, really big TV, and you'll just have to trust me that it's really big, and you'll see what I mean when we get there. So that was such a fun experience. One of the things that I did want to just share about this age group here of having a 2 and a 4-year-old is, in particular with our 4-year-old, her critical thinking skills are on full display right now. And it has been such an amazing transition that's happened right before our eyes, because she is asking tons of questions that are not just, our conversations with her are not just what color is this and how many are this. We still have lots of those kinds of teaching moments that way, but she's been asking tons of questions from Sunday school at church and from reading new books, where it shows that she's really thinking critically about what she's reading, what she's learning, and she's trying to piece it all together. She's learning some big key words from Sunday school at church, for example, and we're kind of guiding that process of teaching her how this whole story fits in together. And that's something that we've been really fortunate, again, through our new church, The Garden. One of the things that they have really, really honed in on is obviously discipleship, like I talked about a minute ago, but also that discipleship is not just for, middle schoolers, high schoolers, college kids, things like that. It starts even with these pre-K kids, and they are going through a story curriculum that's called The Biggest Story, and it's a whole curriculum, but there's a couple different versions of it depending on that are age appropriate. It's all by a American theologian named Kevin DeYoung, if you're familiar with him, and he's got some great work. And seeing his kids work, oh my gosh, it's been so cool. So if you have toddlers and if you're looking at teaching them some amazing biblical truths that lead and help develop their worldview, The Biggest Story curriculum is a great place to start. Something that's actually been newly introduced to us over the last couple of weeks, and we now have a copy of it thanks to some of our friends, is the Little Pilgrim's Big Journey books. If you're not familiar with those, this is brand new to me, but this whole story, it's a couple of books. I think they just came out with the third one. They are probably 150, 200 pages long, beautiful illustrations, and the whole storyline is an allegory. And so all of the different characters have different names that represent maybe a personality trait of theirs. Like passion is one of the characters. Patience is one of the characters. The main character is a little boy named Christian, which that probably shouldn't be too hard to figure out what that's referring to. And so it's been awesome. And I've only personally read one of the stories, and it's been so great to be able to go through that a chapter at a time, either before naps or bedtime, things like that too. So anyway, all that being said, getting to see your kids grow into their critical thinking skills, that has been such an amazing transition for us to be able to see that. And even our 2-year-old, man, she is sharp. She's picking up on things that the 4-year-old is putting down, and she's feisty. She's our spicy girl, and we love that about her. Next up is travel. This is kind of interesting. So 2 weeks ago, we went on a family trip to Washington to go to my brother-in-law's wedding, and that was an amazing trip in and of itself. But that was our first flight with the girls, and it was their first flight, of course, too. But it was our first time traveling with them, like that kind of long distance, and that was quite the experience. The flight itself, they were just amazed at the whole thing. The hardest part of this, and if you've ever flown with your little kids, maybe you can relate. The hardest part is once you get through security and all of that at the airport, and then you're waiting at the gate for your flight to take off, and it's kind of this, okay, we don't really know exactly how long it's going to be. We don't have a whole lot of room to spread out to be able to play with lots of toys and things like that. And so that was the challenging part of that, both directions on the flights. But man, it was such a fun trip, getting to just show them the world and show them a little bit outside of what the desert in summer in Arizona looks like and feels like, to show them some real trees up in Washington. Next week, so that was 2 weeks ago that we went to Washington. Next week, I'm actually going on a road trip with our men's discipleship group from church, and we're going to be driving up to Yellowstone National Park and the Grand Teton National Park and Zion National Park, and I'm just super pumped for all of that. I think that's just going to be such a great experience to be able to not only go to those places, but to do so with some of my best buddies, and just to get to have some quality time with them too. And last up, I'm going to speed through these here. I wanted to share just some updates on some of my current goals, and that's actually for I have a goal written out for these 6 sections that I've talked about. So this is our 7th one here. Training goal. Right now, my goal is simply to create a sustainable groove with my new and changing schedule. And as you can imagine, that's been quite the challenge so far, but I'm really excited to tackle that. Coaching wise, talked about Strong Shepherds, but man, I am so excited to be able to continue to add lots of value to that for the sake of being able to help parents and for the sake of being able to help more and more parents. And so I want to give just so much value that people go, I can't believe that it took me this long to join for free and to get all this value here. Church-wise is just to keep building relationships with our current Bible study group that we've been working with for the past 9 months or so maybe, and man, it's been a joy to be able to do that. Job-wise, just to dive headfirst into serving at the garden. That's the plan, is to spend as much time outside of my comfort zone as possible. Family-wise, just to keep loving and leading Amanda first and foremost, and then our girls. And travel-wise, just to enjoy God's creation while encouraging and uplifting all these guys too. So anyway, that's what I got for today's episode. I got 10 seconds left. I wanted to thank you for joining today's episode. Thanks for joining this update. I'm Coach Jay. Thanks for hanging with me, and we'll see you next time.